Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Bob Scarborough.
And we are
Uh,
the FAIRtax Guys, complete with Fat Albert and our scrolling banner.
and the thing about Fat Albert is, and the scrolling banner and Fat Albert give a really down to earth comparison between the tax code, the income tax that we currently operate under, and what it says here at the top of the banner: simple, efficient, visible.
Yes, the FAIRtax. And I don't scramble Fat Albert all the way up. It just takes too long to put it back together if I scramble it completely. So I just have my Harper pattern on this one. But there it is.
So good to
How you
have.
been?
We're always glad to have folks that are tuning in to the program, and today is no exception. Thank you for being out there.
Yes, and share the video if you would. We'd certainly appreciate that. But let's when I turned into to Congress.gov this a few minutes ago, I saw that the Congress critters are back to business as usual. The past couple of times we've recorded, it's been kind of slow, but there are a bunch of new ones out there in Congress.gov now. I'll try to go through these fairly quickly, but we've got the Congress critters back doing what Congress critters do best, and that is monkeying with the tax code. And so, again, if you put the words Internal Revenue Code in quotes in the search function at congress.gov, make sure over there on the left column you've selected just legislation in the current 118th Congress. If you do that, as of the date we're recording this, 1,527 hits returned on that search. And at the top of our list today is this will make you well, I don't know, it'll make you go crazy or smile or what, but it's HR 7821 to amend the Internal Revenue Code to provide for a tax credit. We've been hitting on that for a while, for a tax credit with respect to fighting retail crime and for other purposes. Do you really need the tax code to fight retail crime? What you really need are tougher penalties and enough cops to take care of the problem.
Right, and security people at those aforementioned retail locations, without a doubt.
Yes, to provide a tax credit with respect to fighting retail crime. Now, there's no text in this yet, so I can't really tell exactly what they're up to. But that's Representative Ruben Gallego of Arizona. So who knows? They want to fight retail crime with a tax credit rather than with stuff that actually works.
Right. Boy, oh boy. I tell you,
Oh,
but the other part why do you use the tax code to do that? Why
uh, oh, mercy. Who knows? But the next one on the list is HR 7814 to amend the Internal Revenue Code to exclude from gross income certain federally subsidized loan repayments for dental school faculty. Yes, that one is going into the Hall of Shame. You talk about a really very narrowly defined tax break. That's it. To exclude from gross income. You don't even have to count it as income. In other words, it's tax-free, federally subsidized loan repayments for dental school faculty. What do you think
Great.
of that?
Well, I mean, again, using the tax code to do this is picking winners and losers, and that's the ultimate slap in the face to everybody that doesn't fit in that category, that is not going to dental school or is a faculty at those schools. It's just, how and the lobbyists for that group, that industry, are the ones that are behind that one, I'm certain.
Oh, no doubt about it. Okay, let's move on here. HR 7813 to amend the Internal Revenue Code to require an individual to provide a Social Security number in order to claim the child tax credit. Now, that just seems like that would make common sense. How can you just willy-nilly claim tax credits, not have to prove that you're actually entitled to them, not actually, have to prove anything like that? And our tax code is just full of this. In fact, this reminds me of something the other day. We were talking about how many tax credits there are. I went to a couple of different artificial intelligence things and asked them, how many different tax credits are there in the Internal Revenue Code? They couldn't answer it. Every time I just get back a list of three or four of the most popular ones. Nobody knows, not even a computer that has access to all the data can go through it and tell me how many different tax credits there are in the Internal Revenue Code. It's insane that we have a tax system like this.
Yeah, and the whole point of our weekly endeavor into this database is to underscore just how insane some of the specific uh, issues that are brought in. I have a hard time with that understanding that I, me, myself, am just a regular old person. I don't fit into many, if any, of the categories that would be a special interest that would be able to benefit from any of the work done through Congress to adjust the tax code. There, I don't find anything that I would necessarily benefit from.
Yep. Well, that's because you don't have enough money to make these huge political contributions and buy favorable tax treatment.
Very true. That's very
Yes,
true.
absolutely. All right, let's move on. This one looks familiar. I think we've seen this before. It might have been in the previous Congress. HR 7991, and there's a companion bill, S 4057, both of which say to amend the Internal Revenue Code to postpone tax deadlines and reimburse paid late fees for United States nationals who are unlawfully or wrongfully detained or held hostage abroad and for other purposes. Does that sound familiar to you? I think we've hit that before.
And I think some people, members of Congress, don't remember or haven't searched properly, or their staff haven't searched properly through the tax code to find that similar language there for sure.
Yes, okay. Well, this was introduced about a week ago. Representative Dinah Titus, Titus from Nevada, and the companion Senate bill is Christopher Coons from Delaware. To postpone tax deadlines and reimburse late. How can you imagine if someone is held hostage in Iran and they get an IRS notice that say we are charging you penalties because you missed your filing deadline? Uh, that's insane. All right, one more. Now, this one also looks familiar. I think we've seen this before, but then this also says it was introduced about a week ago by Senator Martin Heinrich of New Mexico, S 4068. A bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code to establish a business tax credit for the purchase of zero emission electric lawn, garden, and landscape equipment and for other purposes. We've seen that one before too, haven't we?
We have. I remember with great detail. I remember with great detail, if I can say this without my tongue being stuck in my cheek. It's just insane that the tax code is being used for all these activities, but that seems to be the easiest place to park uh, special interest requests, doesn't it?
Absolutely. If you want to, provide some kind of incentive for people to purchase zero emission electric lawn, garden, or landscape equipment, why don't you just pass a bill granting people, a grant or whatever and says, gee, if you'll buy this, we'll give you a rebate of X number of dollars rather than sticking it in the tax code and calling it a tax credit. I still want to find an artificial intelligence thing somewhere that can tell me how many different tax credits there are in the Internal Revenue Code. I bet the number would just astound you.
Wonder if you could use one of the like the chat GPT that's out there, if you could create the question in a way that it would parse the database of the tax code, the IRS tax code, to find that out. That would be interesting to.
When I asked it, I asked a couple of different ones. I don't remember off the top of my head which ones they were. I was just, did a Google search for free artificial intelligence, chats, and both two or three of them, I tried them, and all of them just said, here are the most popular ones. They give you a list of three or four of them, but
Right.
they didn't answer the question, how many different ones are there? I think they can. I'm not sure that they can actually go through and count them all.
Blow up. They might blow up,
Uh,
from all of that processing that they have to go through to find out the answer.
Well, maybe somebody that knows more about artificial intelligence than I do can figure out how to get that specific question answered. How many different tax credits are there in the Internal Revenue Code? That sounds like a pretty straightforward question. It's asking for a single number, but how to get at it, who knows? All right, let's move on here. The Congress creditors will provide us some more entertainment next week here on Fairtax Power Radio. But if you were watching for the past couple of weeks, we've been going through what we call our Fairtax sizzle points, good things that the Fairtax will do for you. And, if you like what you're hearing about bringing home your entire paycheck, getting a tax refund, every month instead of once a year, never having to file a tax return again, you might be a Fairtax fan. And I think that there are a lot of people out there who are Fairtax fans and don't realize it yet. We have a separate set of these points directed at business, particularly small business. So if you own a small business, if you work for a small business, bring this to the attention of the person who does own your small business and see if we can make a Fairtax fan out of them. Now, here's one. If you'd like your business tax compliance costs to drop by at least 80%, probably more, you might be a Fairtax fan.
Yeah. I mean,
you're involved. So, go ahead. Sorry, we're stepping on each other. Zoom makes that really easy.
Oh yeah. As I live and breathe this on a regular basis, how much time do I have? How much time do I have to spend in tax compliance?
Yeah, because I know you're involved on the ownership side of the radio station up there. And I know this is something you have to deal with a lot. Would you like to see your tax compliance costs go away?
Well, of course, and it's substantial, and the cost you have to think. Okay, it's not necessarily. It is certainly how much money are you having to peel off the wallet to comply, but at the same time, it's how much is it costing you in time. And I think that's where a lot of people don't realize you have a certain amount of time between sun up and sundown, between can see and can't see, as we used to say a long time ago, where you have the opportunity to do things. You have the opportunity to advance your business. You have an opportunity to create and innovate. You have an opportunity to manage your business. And the smaller your operation, the more responsibility lands on your table. And in addition to those dollars that you have to spend for compliance on a regular basis, there's an equal amount of time lost in an opportunity that you may never realize, or it might pass you by because you were too busy shuffling through the labyrinth of tax compliance.
Yeah, if you're stuck in the office doing tax compliance tasks, that is time that you could be spending, out on the street trying to, sell advertising and make your business more profitable.
Yeah, right. And that's something that we talk about here, and it's about time management, of course. And since time is money, my time is better spent, as you just said, not in a box full of papers. But I have to pay somebody in order to get me out of doing that.
Yeah.
What I do on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, it's all about lost opportunities when you have to deal with tax compliance.
All right. Well, I'll run this one by you too, and you can comment on it if you'd like to simplify your payroll calculations. I imagine you have a payroll clerk there at the radio station who actually does this. You're not something you have to do yourself. If you'd like to simplify your payroll calculations by eliminating withholding, you might be a FairtaX fan.
Right. The payroll taxes are probably the worst part of the federal tax scheme, and I'll call it a scheme.
I'll call it a scam.
Well, a scam. I mean, you just change a few letters around and off you go. The challenges are, keeping up with it, because not only do I have to keep up with those numbers, but at the end of the year, the person that gets the check has to keep up with that same number as they report in, and we hope that there's not a mathematical miscalculation somewhere, either on their part or ours. And then of course time deadlines and everything else. But yeah, if you'd like to simplify your payroll calculations by eliminating withholding and federal payroll taxes, you might be a FAIRtax fan. And
figure out your payroll, just how many hours did you work, how many dollars per hour do you get, multiply that together and write it down on the check. End of story.
yeah,
And
that
that's
if the state has something, that they have to have, well, then that gets figured in as part. And then there are a lot of states that are, moving towards eliminating their income taxes, payroll taxes, et cetera.
Oh yeah, I forgot. You do have a state income tax there in North Carolina, which we don't have down here in Florida. But this reminds me of something else you hear. I have heard people say, "Oh, we don't want the fair tax because we don't want to turn all of the retailers into Uncle Sam's tax collectors." Well, under the current system, all employers, not just retailers, employers, everybody that employs somebody is a tax collector for Uncle Sam under the current system, and they don't ever seem to ever mention that.
And there's no, and you don't pay, you don't get paid for doing that either. That's no, there's no, I mean, for a retailer, it's another button on the on the cash register. It's another,
Hmm.
it's just another component of being able to scan the code that's on the product, and within the state, within that stated amount, it's a very simple update to a piece of firmware that's in probably, wouldn't you say, 95% of the retail businesses out there are calculated on a machine that would very easily be updated.
All right, let's move on here. If you're in a business that produces products for export, this one's for you. If you'd like to see American products more competitive on the world market, you might be a FAIRtax fan. The current tax system discriminates against American manufacturers and in favor of foreign manufacturers to a degree that most people would it'd blow their mind if they actually fully understood it.
That's very true. And the other side of that is our in the competition, as costs of taking the tax out of all of the pieces of a product, the competitive nature in the economy would drive the actual retail cost of goods purchased or goods manufactured in the United States, puts our goods here at a distinct advantage against an import of a similar product, because
Hmm.
that product over there is going to come in at a rate higher, retail rate higher, have to be sold at a retail rate higher than the product that similar product that was made in the United States.
All right, moving on here. These two kind of go together. If you're tired of being punished for your productivity, you might be a FAIRtax fan. If you'd like to have more time and money available to expand your business, you might be a FAIRtax fan.
Absolutely, without a doubt. Again, missed opportunities. If I'm sitting over here working on the shoebox full of papers for the Internal Revenue Service, and something happens over on the other side of town, or a new development that comes up, it just adds to that. And I'm not saying that happens, but the potential for that type missed opportunity could very well happen to somebody that's one man running their operation, doing everything 100%.
All right. Well, I tell you what, I have noticed one thing going through all of the tax credits and breaks that we look at in our Congress.gov segment. I have never seen one that targets, local live at local radio stations. That's probably because live at local radio stations like you've got up there can't afford the expensive lobbyists that it takes to get these tax breaks. So if you'd like to remove the lobbyists from the equation and level the playing field between big business and small business, you might be a FAIRtax fan.
Right. And we think about that buying in. Now, there are some broadcast associations that our company is we pay dues to, so we get some benefit. We get information, about things that are going on at the federal level, generally from the commission, from the Federal Communications Commission, in our specific industry. So there are things that we look at. We're not a corporate radio station with owning, 5 radio stations in each of the top 50 markets in the country, or more. Larger, smaller markets, meaning creating an opportunity for those big companies. It may be in the top 100 markets, but more so in the top 50 markets. We still have a voice on issues, but it's not as focused or as deliberate as, say, a private lobbyist for one of the corporate radio stations, as I just mentioned.
All right. If you'd like your business to business purchases, stuff you buy for the operation of your radio station, if you would like that to be tax free, you might be a FAIRtax fan.
I go out and I got to tell you this: I've had the same 2 printers in our office since the day we opened the studio in downtown Winston-Salem, as an example. I've maintained them. They're maintained very well. They're not overly used. They're the cost of ink is reasonable. There's really no extent on that beyond the dollar amount of that. So if I had to go out and buy any piece of equipment, recently purchased a standby transmitter for the one that we have installed, and they're not a lot of money, but I went and bought that, but it had a tax on it. It had a sales tax on it, and it was enough to have a couple $100 worth of tax on it. And so those things, if you can think about that $200 that I had to fork out to pay, that manufacturer that is going to have to pay in as a tax, either to the state or to the feds, it's a significant amount of money. If you're always buying things, once we are set up, we don't have a lot going out. But I'm sure if you look at
if you were a manufacturing outfit that is constantly having to buy raw materials with which to build your products, and then you have to pay tax every time you buy plywood, for example, or buy plastic or rubber or whatever, and then all of that tax cost has to get rolled into the price that you would charge the consumer who buys your product. That's we had a chairman's report on that a couple of weeks ago. Embedded taxes like that. The current tax system is chock full of them, and the FAIRtax gets rid of all of that.
Right, exactly, without a doubt. FAIRtax, great for business, great for the consumers, great for the all spectra of the income strata, from low income to multi-billion-dollar, corporate people. Everybody benefits. Everybody benefits.
All righty. This might not be quite specific to the radio business up there, but these two are also related. If you'd like to see outsourced jobs and trillions of offshore dollars returned to the United States, you might be a FAIRtax fan.
Yeah, and that's key. Trillions, literally, maybe 10 or 12 trillion. I remember the number a few years ago was just over $10 trillion that's offshore because of our tax code. So it benefits the persons that have that wealth, doing other things overseas. And if we are able to pass the fair tax, which will happen, soon as it happens, that money is going to come flooding back in for investments, for opportunities to expand businesses, to start businesses. For that money will be put to good use for so long as we can, are successful in getting the fair tax enacted.
It will be used to hire people.
Right.
Jobs. I mean, the fair tax is the best jobs bill that anybody could ever possibly imagine. We got about 2 minutes left. We got one more left here that
All
says,
right.
if you'd like to see a tax system that benefits the people and not the politicians, you might be a fair tax fan. Again, I refer to the chairman's report that Steve Hayes has. See, I think this one's going to be published. I don't know if it's been published yet. I get the advanced copy to look at it, but he is talking about the real reason we don't get the fair tax is because we've got a very, very small minority of very, very powerful and influential people who are benefiting from the current income tax system, and they don't want to see their gravy train derail. And they are perfectly willing to have a thoroughly rotten system that benefits them and it works to the detriment of just about everybody else. But if you'd like to see a tax system that benefits the people and not the politicians, the fair tax is it.
And you think about that, and I'll wrap this thought up real quick. Some people are politicians, but not all politicians, and I don't mean this as a slap in the face, are people, because they get into that mix up there in Washington, and the challenges that they have facing them as people is sort of hard. It's a difficult thing. It's a difficult line to walk. And if you go in there, if you were had an opportunity to say, well, I think I'll throw my hat in the ring for representative from my district, and went in there understanding that the fair tax is what it is, and that was something that you campaigned on, I would think that you'd have a better chance of winning than somebody that wasn't talking about the fair tax.
All right. Well, I hope so. Well, those are our you might be a FairTax fan points for business, and we are slap out of time here on FairTax Power Radio. Again, thank you so much for watching, listening, sharing the videos. Be with us here same time, same channel next week here on the FairTax official Facebook page and our FairTax Guys YouTube channel, and you can look in the Rumble archive if you kind of like to see things after the fact. But that's going to be it for FairTax Power Radio. Again, thank you so much for watching and listening. I'm Bob Paxton.
I'm Bob Scarborough.
We are the FairTax Guys, reminding you the fair tax is the only truly fair tax, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
So, how much will I bring home?
Go ahead.
How much do you make? We'll just say 40,000. Okay, keep it simple. Throw out the deductions, all that stuff. So you got your 40K, right? Now the first 8,000 is going to be taxed at 10%. The 8 to 33,000 is going to be taxed at 15%, and the 33 to 40, of course, is 25%. So that brings your total to $6,345.
Okay, so the average is what?
16%. Okay, and on top of that, you got Medicare, which is 1.5%, and then of course your Social Security, which is 6.2%. So actually, your new total is $9,405.
Which is
23.65%. You're getting it. You're getting it. Don't even get me started on what the boss has to pay. He's got to pay a portion of your taxes as well, so you don't have to.
Right. And you?
Oh,